Hello, and welcome to the Cheap Seats, your weekly English Premier League podcast show, football show. We discuss all things that are happening in the Premier League and all the things that have happened and are to come. People being fired, people being hired. We're talking about PE teachers looking for jobs now, things like that. That tickle your fancy, and so. Welcome to the show. My name is Mpho. We need to get our display names up so everybody knows who we are. And also, please remember to like, subscribe, and share this YouTube channel. I think this one says Gorilla Say. Let me just stop that. And yeah, please do follow us on these various platforms: One World Sports Radio, on Facebook, YouTube, and on Instagram. The most important one is the YouTube one, where we'd like for you to subscribe. We've got a test match going on, Pakistan and South Africa, on this channel on One World Sports Radio. So do tune in for that from 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, South African time. The South Africans hopefully will give us something to celebrate other than all the disaster that was happening today. We've got AB, we've got Dean. We're here to talk about Lampard, but firstly, how are you guys doing? Let's start with Dean.
Yeah, all good. Good week. Spurs through to the fifth round of the FA Cup. Took a while. Struggled against the bottom side championship. But yeah, it's been a good week. I think from a Spurs perspective, we weren't supposed to take that long to beat a side, and we had to bring on the main players to do it, which is worrying. But we threw nonetheless, and just can't wait to win the FA Cup now.
Wasn't that Wickham?
Yeah, it was Wickham Wanderers, the bottom side in the championship. We couldn't.
With the beast, Adesanya.
Akifenwa, isn't it?
Yes, him. Yes.
Yes. He only came in late on the second half. Thank goodness. So we could handle that.
Oh, so they saved their starters for you. Wow, that's props.
Such a compliment in this day and age.
AB, you came off Bruno masterclass on the other side of this. How are you feeling in that being in the FA Cup fifth round?
I mean, it's business as usual for United, being in the FA Cup fifth round. Funny enough, it's not business as usual for Liverpool because Klopp has never made it to the fifth round of the Cup with Liverpool. So that's a little fun fact there. I enjoyed United attacking. I did not enjoy us defending. I found that Mohamed Salah and even Bobby Firmino made United's defense look a little bit wanting at stages, but just glad that we're through and we can move on.
Okay. Yeah, well, my team over the weekend got...
How's Arsenal's FA Cup run going, Paul?
Oh, look, it's fine. We will not be the defending champions are out, so someone else will take it. We just want to give other people a chance, you know. 40 is enough. You don't want to make it. You don't want to hurt other people's feelings.
We're so thankful for your gratitude.
Thank you. Well, you got to thank Gabriel because he was the one who was flat-footed at the time. It just confirmed to me that Willian shouldn't play for Arsenal at all, shouldn't come on. It's a problem. It's this like it's ridiculous. You can't be showing up by 19-year-old kids who show you how to play a position you've played your entire career, and they are doing it much better than you. It's just ridiculous. And you get paid like £190,000 a week. Like, dude, come on. Those kids are getting paid 20. Like Emil Smith is getting paid £20,000 a week. You're getting paid £190,000 a week. Do something better than them. But yeah, that's my little rant on Willian. We beat Southampton on Tuesday night, so that's a good one. And we are now heading up the table. We're moving on up. Speaking about moving on up or moving on out, Frank Lampard got fired. I think on Monday. And so in the battle of the teachers, including Arteta and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and Lampard was the first one to be fired. And so they brought in Thomas Tuchel. Let me tell you what I think about this. I think so. My thing is that I kind of feel as though, with all the talent that Chelsea had, the manager was the weak link in all of this situation because he just never knew which was his best 11, and that kind of held Chelsea back from being the better team that could beat all of us and wipe the floor with all of us. And so well, I'm just sad that the Chelsea management and the higher ups finally figured out that he was the problem. Obviously we were all Lampard in because we're not Chelsea supporters. But he's used 27 different combinations this season in the front three, throughout Champions League and in the Premier League. It's also similar. He hasn't had a settled back middle three in that midfield. It's just looked very bad. And from an outsider's perspective, we're like, continue, just carry on, Lampard in, because it's just great. It's just lovely. And I think a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about teams going up and down in the season as to, Chelsea will finally pick it up somewhere along the line. But I do think that there was deep down in everyone else who wasn't or everyone else who was looking at the Chelsea side, you kind of felt that this guy doesn't know his starting 11, and also this team's just gonna finish outside the European places if they're not careful. And right now they're sitting in 12th position, where the coach has only had one session with them, so it's going to be interesting to see how they play against Wolves tonight. But AB, what do you think about Lampard getting fired? Was it the right time? Did Chelsea make a mistake?
I believe that Roman acted accordingly because he probably felt, and the board probably felt, that Chelsea can't really qualify for the Champions League under Lampard. The biggest, well, I mean, I think that's the risk that they had. Is why are you firing? Yeah. I also like to always look around at the teams who you're competing against for that Champions League spot or for the title, and how you as a manager perform against those teams. And if you look at the Evertons, the Arsenals, hell, the Villas even, the Cities, Lampard's Chelsea have been dropping points against them. And that's not somewhere where you need to be as a top 4, top 3 sort of contender. It's unfortunate because perhaps long-term he could have been the right man for Chelsea, but I think under the Abramovich era, the only man who can actually coach this team is Roman himself, because he'll always find something wrong with the manager. He's done it before, he'll do it again. He'll take the world's greatest manager and be successful with him for a year, win the Champions League with another manager the next year, and then fire both of them. It's the way Chelsea operates. That's it.
But obviously, AB, he's had now it's 14 managers, 12 permanent, and 2 caretaker in the 18 years he's been a Chelsea owner, which is Bafana-esque at best. So now, Dean, when we looked at Frank and all his things, obviously there's been articles written about. I love the fact that like Rudiger and Kovacic went to the Chelsea board to kind of tell them that Frank Lampard is great. That bothered me a lot. But obviously we've heard the players weren't happy. They felt that he wasn't tactically astute. And I think everyone saw that. And then a lot of the ramblings around his transfer dealings, him wanting Declan Rice like come hell or high water, even though that would have looked very bad for Chelsea, with him bringing back someone they've let go. What was his reign characterized as Chelsea coach? What were the things that he did so badly?
I think we mentioned it a lot of times, and I think the one word that you can kind of sum it up is sporadic, I guess. Kind of never knew what Frank was going to do, You saw that in his lineups. You saw that, there's a lot of, even this last transfer window, I mean, spending £200 million, and reports are saying of that £200 million, his only real transfer that he wanted was Ben Chilwell, which you find kind of hard to believe, given that there were also stories that he phoned Timo himself and convinced him to come to Chelsea over at Liverpool. So I think there's going to be a lot of reports coming out that are kind of going to say those kind of things. It's obviously easier to tune the man now that he's gone rather than when he was there. But I think the one thing that we can kind of get from this is perhaps, and I've seen a lot of comparisons drawn by Liverpool fans of, they don't want, for example, if Klopp had to go out now, they wouldn't want Gerrard to come in because he's not developed as a coach as yet. And I think that's what Chelsea should have done. They should have left Lampard at Derby for a little bit longer, left him, get his feet, find his coaching abilities, and then bring in a legend like that into your club will then pull the club upwards, and you'll probably, find greater heights that way. And I think that's the one thing hopefully most clubs have learned from bringing in club legends as their coach, that they actually were players at a time, and being a coach is completely different. Just the fact that your team in and out and you've played there doesn't automatically make you a good coach. So yeah, bit of a roundabout way of saying that I'm sad that Lampard's gone, because Chelsea are now maybe turn around and come back. You just hope that doesn't happen.
That whole new manager bounce there.
Yeah.
Sam Allardyce had that for just 2 games, and then it just fell apart. And to some extent, that's obviously that is my problem. My issue with Chelsea is that them going for Lampard, you kind of felt that they were automatically going for a rebuild, similar to what Manchester United were doing, to kind of give him time, similar to Ole. Do you think Lampard, and I'm going to ask AB this, do you think Lampard was hurt by his success last season? Last season, I think there was a ridiculous run where they went 17 games unbeaten. And obviously they finished second they got to the FA Cup final, they lost that one. And they also finished in the top 4. And you kind of felt that maybe the rebuild project, I don't think that Chelsea considered it a rebuild, but I think everyone else was like, okay, this is kind of because he's inexperienced. Do you think that was one of the reasons why he got fired? Was everyone was like, last season you did this season you're like giving us peanuts, and we spent like £500 million getting you Germany's finest young talent, and you can't do much with it except for the fact that you keep telling them you want Declan Rice.
Yeah.
I mean, you make a great point. Frank and his young Chelsea team last season had a great season. Getting to the FA Cup final and then losing as badly as they did was amazing to watch. And then being beaten out by another PE teacher was also amazing to watch. And if that is success for Frank Lampard, then yes, he does need to go back and manage elsewhere. But I think Lampard did really well with managing guys like the Tammy Abrahams, the Mason Mounts, the Reece Jameses, the young kids who, he probably could relate more to, because he was coaching players like them at Derby and all of that. And then suddenly you come to the summer transfer window, you spend 220 mil on stars, and you're trying to fit them into this young team. And it's sort of like you're playing Football Manager, and that's not how real football works. It's suddenly Tammy Abraham went from, the go-to guy to being behind Werner, behind Giroud, and it was weird. And that affects young players. And I was taking a look at Lampard's staff, support staff. All the same sort of career progression as he is. So his assistant was the same assistant at Derby. Whereas if you compare it to someone like Ollie Solskjaer, his right-hand man is Mike Phelan, who worked under Sir Alex, who helped build United and, that team that was rebuilt over a few years. He was there. So maybe Lampard didn't surround himself with those experienced managers who he could learn from and, gain some experience from. It all seemed like Lampard was literally just telling his players to go out there and express themselves, which apparently I read an article, and that was one of his team talks. It was literally no tactical discussions, just go out there and play. And it's a bit confusing.
Sounds like an early Ole team meeting that he used to have.
when Ole just goes and tells Dan James to run. Go, Dan James, run. Just run.
Okay, so Thomas Tuchel is now the new manager. He's in. I'm not sold on this. I've seen his German record. Everyone thought he was the next best young German coach after Jurgen Klopp. But actually now we've all figured out that it's Hansi Flick of Bayern Munich. He was just sitting behind Jogi Löw for a very long time. Obviously Tuchel coached at Mainz, at Dortmund, following similar steps to Jurgen Klopp. And then obviously he went to PSG. At PSG last season he won, I think it was a treble, and he got to a Champions League final. The year before, he won a domestic double, but he got fired. And let's talk truth. The guy got fired, and he got fired because he was fighting with the higher ups. Knowing who Roman Abramovich is, Dean, like, why would they hire a guy like this? Like, don't they vet CVs at Chelsea?
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking. I mean, you look at PSG, he got fired because, again, he was fighting with, like you said, the upper management there. Same thing happened at Borussia Dortmund, and he was pretty public in his criticisms of that board as well. So you look at that and you go, cool, he has another Chelsea manager who's going to last 6 months, and then they'll try to find an interim, But I think it's also a case of, who else would they have got at this point in time? Because at this stage... Pardon?
That's Gus Hiddink. That's the guy they
yeah, well, he'll probably still come sometime after 6 months once Tuchel gets fired. But
so Gus Hiddink, just quickly, is the current manager of the Curacao national football team. So he probably could have taken
that prestigious team that we all know about. But I think, you have to, these Chelsea fans are not happy. So they have to get something in to make them seem like, okay, we're going to do something. We've seen the problems. We brought in someone that's done great in the Farmers League. So don't worry about it. We'll finish top 4. They had no other option in my mind of who to bring in. You look at Allegri, he could have come in, but I think Conte would have phoned him, spoken into Italian and said, listen, don't go there. That place is a disaster, So I think it is kind of a patchwork, which is probably why they only gave him an 18-month contract. It's probably all that they can handle at the moment. But it'll be interesting to see the way that he plays, because he does. You look at it, the days in Borussia Dortmund, he liked that pressing, that pressing tactic against the German
press.
Yeah, the Jurgen Klopp press, which he obviously learned. And we'll see if that's going to come to the forefront now in the rest of the games in the Premier League. Do they have the players? Probably. I mean, it's not like he's picking up a team that's full of nobodies and that he can't go ahead and do something with these guys. In the beginning of the season, we were saying probably Chelsea had the best summer transfer window and they're really title contenders. So you can't say that he doesn't have the assets at his disposal. So it'll be interesting to see. But a lot of guys are saying, yeah, he's German, so you'll bring these German guys, bring the best out of the German guys. But I don't really see that as a good enough argument. I mean, those guys speak English. It's not like you need a German guy who can just speak German and now all of a sudden they're going to be like, oh, right, now I remember how to play football. So I think it's going to be a big test to see what he does with Timo and Havertz. He's got a great relationship with Thiago, so I think I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to lean on some of him in the dressing room, although Thiago's English isn't that great either. So it's going to be an interesting time at Chelsea in the dressing room tonight at Wolves, I reckon.
Yeah, but so here's the thing, AB. Obviously, Tuchel's coached Pulisic before, Thiago Silva. He's coached. He's also coached. Those are the two guys, and obviously there's that German connection. A new manager brings in new life into the team, gives guys who've been put to the side back into the fore. Are there any players who'll be happy to see Lampard go? For one, I think Kepa's very happy to see Lampard go.
Look, Kep is happy to see a lot of things go, just based on the way you keep. I don't know. I think maybe N'Golo Kante might be someone like that. I don't think we've seen the best from N'Golo Kante since Lampard's been there. I think Jorginho as well. Anyone who plays in Mason Mount's position, actually, because
they now have competition.
Exactly, yeah. And then maybe Kai Havertz will be happy because I feel like Havertz and Werner haven't appeared for Chelsea yet, in the sense that they've been played left, center for Werner and then right and middle for Havertz. It's kind of like they don't know where they fit in to this team. Maybe Tuchel's going to help them find a designated spot and say, cool, this is where I want you to play. if you are not good there, then I'm going to replace you with next in the backing line. I don't know. It's a very weird move. Although saying that, I do believe Chelsea will win against Wolves, because I think there'll be that knee-jerk reaction just from the players to say it wasn't us that was the problem. It was actually Frank. It always happens. I mean, yeah, it happened with United every time.
That's why teams like to fire coaches for that bounce. Moving on to other news in the Premier League, we just want to talk about Chelsea. Kevin De Bruyne is injured now. Man City have been on a run. They've been taking names, cowboy style, shooting everybody down. And then Kevin De Bruyne got injured. And everyone was like, oh, wow. And then it felt like a coronation, because all the Manchester United fans were dancing in the street. Literally. Thinking that the league was theirs. Is the league theirs? Oh, yes, and obviously Jamie Vardy's injured. I need to talk about Leicester, because they're in and around that title race, and it feels like it's one of those Leicester-type seasons where somehow, somewhere they'll end up at the top. So Jamie Vardy's out too, and that's also very important. But obviously with Man City being the guys, obviously now it's Wednesday. They won last night. They won handsomely without De Bruyne, but it was West Brom that got ripped apart by 19-year-olds in the snow. What does this injury do to Manchester City and everyone around? Does it give people hope? Because it's 4 to 6 weeks, which is quite a long time. It's like 12 fixtures. Or are we just going to discount the fact that Pep is a very good coach?
So obviously losing De Bruyne, I mean, it's going to put a hole in any side. But I mean, that hole is probably best filled by City players. And I think that's exactly what we're going to see. And we saw it last night. Okay, fine, it was West Brom. But I think De Bruyne going out will give guys like Foden and perhaps Mahrez a little bit more game time, probably starting game time. And I think those guys are good enough to not really fill the gap, because it's a massive gap, but I think they're good enough to get City over the line until De Bruyne does come back. You look at Gundogan, he's playing probably the best he's ever played in the Premier League. So he can, to a certain extent, pull the strings that De Bruyne was pulling, and kind of still motivate the team to get going. The one thing, though, I mean, obviously we very, full of praise of City, but they have had a relatively easy run previously. I mean, they've had Brighton, Palace, and West Brom yesterday, and now they've got Sheffield, Burnley coming up. In this period that De Bruyne is out, they've got Liverpool, Spurs, and that team that's sitting, I don't know where, at the bottom of the log, Arsenal. So they are a couple tough fixtures in there, but you kind of have to wait and see. If Liverpool are still going through their problems, I think City would probably get over the line. And Spurs have beaten City previously. So I think City could probably last without De Bruyne, purely because they've got the talent to fill that gap. But it will be interesting to see how the top 6 face City now, knowing that De Bruyne is out. Or I think it's a lot easier to cover just Gundogan instead of trying to cover him, De Bruyne, Cancelo running up now that we've seen, that guy's playing out of his boots as well. So it'll be interesting to see that going forward. But I honestly think City without De Bruyne will be fine. I think Leicester are in more trouble with Vardy not being there.
Yes, and then AB, from a City perspective, they have the best defense in the league. They have only conceded 11 goals since Ruben Diaz and John Stones partnered up 12 games ago. That's obviously going to help them. Do you, as a Manchester United supporter, we can see you're clad in zebra colors. Did you, when you heard the news, what did you feel? Did you kind of feel like, okay, one less title rival to worry about? Or it was, okay, no, but we know Pep is still going to come strong and hard at us?
City have the best depth in the league. They can fill holes that you don't even think of players.
Wait. I have to fight you on that one. No, they had, who was it? They played Rory Delap's kid as a striker because Aguero and Jesus were out. What the hell is that?
Hey man, that dude scored. He scored a goal in 3 games. That's all I'm saying.
He'll probably walk into a West Brom side, so it's fine. Let City play him.
But it's just, I think City have they've got a good team cohesion and chemistry, and guys like Riyad Mahrez, who are used to sitting bench, are happy to fill in and play that number 9 or shadow striker or floating number 9 role, whatever you want to call it. And they've got talent everywhere. It's just, if something happens to their defense, that's when I'll start getting excited about perhaps City not being able to do it. Because City only need 1 goal here and there, but they're not going to concede. That's the thing. They're very difficult to break down. They're very difficult to penetrate, and they do create goals with the way they play. It doesn't need to be pretty goals. It doesn't need to be the City of old goals, but it can be however.
Yeah, that's true. And then from a Leicester perspective, obviously without Jamie Vardy, you've got Iheanacho, you've got Slimani. They're not Jamie Vardy. It's not the same. Obviously James Maddison's looking incredible. He's scoring goals. He's scoring goals from deep now. Harvey Barnes, yes, in the period before Jamie Vardy was injured, he wasn't scoring a lot of goals. It was the guys in the midfield. Does that continue? Do you think that continues, or is Jamie Vardy important to that whole machine? Like, if you look at the goals that they've scored, Jamie Vardy is the one who's creating space, dragging defenders out. Do you think they lose that because of the intelligence that they've lost?
Yeah, look, I mean, Jamie Vardy is a class player. He would walk into any top team in Europe now, and with the games they've got coming up, I think it's Everton, who wants to come back. They've got all the resources at their disposal to come back and put up a fight. And they've also got Leeds, and Leeds only know how to play one way. So it's going to be 2 massive tests for Leicester. And if they can see out these 2 games, maybe get 4 points or even 2 points, I think they'd be okay in the long run because it's only halfway. I think Vardy's out for 2 or 3 games. I'm not sure. But it's about now just making sure you are a tight sort of defensive unit as Leicester. And because you're not going to go and score 2-3 goals a game, you can't rely on James Maddison and Harvey Barnes to go and be the Jamie Vardy replacement. It's very difficult. I think by the end of this week, by the end of Sunday, we'll know if Leicester are up for a title fight or not, and it's very exciting. Very exciting.
that is very true. Okay, one other title contending situation that's happening. I'm not saying Arsenal's title contending, but it's a title deciding situation with Manchester United at the top. Arsenal's playing Manchester United as the key game of Gameweek 21. Arsenal was the team that kind of lit the match for United's run up until now. I know, Dean, you don't like Arsenal, but I think you don't like Manchester United more. So let's try this. Can Arsenal stop this run and create a new pattern where Manchester United go into the downward spiral that we found them in the first place?
I don't think Arsenal could win that game, but I definitely think they will put a bit of a pause on United's run at the moment. I think they'll look to frustrate United, and please, I've never asked anything from an Arsenal club or fan, but please just try and stop them, It'll help the whole league, do your bit. But I think Arteta, you have a look at Arsenal's run of late, and they've obviously done well. No one can deny that, right? And coming up, they've got United, Wolves, Villa. So it's not like Arteta has an easy run of games after that. But you would like to think that Arteta can or has thought about United. Everyone's seen what United can do. And having seen or having been, like you said, been the spark to what helped United spur on, you can only hope and pray that he knows now what to do to stop it, because he knows what he did and what he failed on in the past. So I'd like to see, I don't know if of their new sign, I don't know if anyone knows how to pronounce his surname. Is it Odegaard? Or do we have to pronounce it some funny Norwegian way? Well, I'd like to see if he plays, because I think from an Arsenal perspective, look, the young guys are obviously performing, and I think getting another young guy in there was probably the best move for them. So hopefully he can click and he can bring some more exuberance into that side.
You know how much it's going to cost in June if he does well in these 6 months.
How much? What is the actual deal?
Because I saw just so there's no price on purchase. It's just a loan. So if we go back to them in June and say, "Hey, we want this guy," they'll probably say 50.
But that's the only way I think Arsenal will probably be able to stop him. I don't think they should look for the win. I think you should go for the draw. And honestly, Arsenal will take that draw, I'm sure, given the current position. But yeah, I think if United draw against Arsenal and then we see Leicester sort of fumble now without Vardy, that title race is as open as what it was a few weeks ago as well. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, and obviously Spurs is playing Liverpool tonight, which is something else that we will probably talk about after this. But from my perspective, I'm really excited to have Emil Smith-Rowe take on Manchester United. I think we've been crying for creativity. Him and Saka seem to have some second telepathic situation that's going on. And so it's really good to see, because you're like, okay, these kids have been playing together for like 10 years. You can see how this thing works, and they're like, step aside, old people, let's do this. Aubameyang's absence is going to be very intriguing and interesting, because obviously it's a personal issue. There's lots of rumors flying around. We're not going to talk about that. But Lacazette's look good. In that front striker role, he scored in the last 6 goals. He scored in the last 6 games. In all of the last 6 games that Arsenal have played, so that's good. In the Premier League, so that's a good thing. Saka's looking great on the right. Obviously, the problem is Arsenal have won these games playing a 4-5-1 component type of offense. Of structure. Obviously, defensively, they tried to go back into that 3-4-3. Against Manchester United, they attacked with a 3-4-3. They stayed in the 3-4-3, and they just sat in the passing lanes. But the thing is that obviously both teams are now different and stylistically on both occasions, apart from the fact that I think against Arsenal, Paul Pogba was the first time we saw Paul Pogba play on the left, which was fascinating for everyone. And so that's obviously going to be very interesting to see whether they put Paul Pogba, because Paul Pogba needs to be centrally. That's how I always felt. But obviously you've got Bruno, you've got everyone else, and obviously they have game winners, which is guys who can take the game away from you, which is something Arsenal lack, and it's an indictment of obviously where the club has fallen. But this team can defend. Arsenal can defend. They can hold on. They can frustrate teams. The question is, does Arteta go back into that shell that he went into? Because when we went to United, we were also kind of bubbling along, trying to figure out what was going on and trying to get us some sort of a formation, and we won, and that kind of was the poison pill that led to this run of games that was just horrific. And then somehow in December they got it right. So it's going to be quite interesting. I'm just excited to see how kids run at them. I just want the kids to run at them, I think. Harry Maguire in between the Lacazette, Emil Smith-Rowe, and Bukayo Saka axis could be pretty interesting with Luke Shaw there hanging around. Yeah, so I think for me that's the thing. If our home form is the problem, that's the thing. Away from home, we're fine. Home form is the problem, but we can't run away from it. So it will be interesting to see how Arteta sets his team up. I'm hoping for a draw, but deep down inside, I think we can pull it off. But it's going to be, if we do that, then yeah, I think Arteta's bought himself another year. AB, from your perspective, Manchester United, what are you obviously hoping for? You probably want this run to continue, but how do you think United's going to line up? How this game's going to go?
So it is United away from home, so for some reason it's a bit more comforting for United fans everywhere. I would like us to line up the same way.
It's not the weirdest thing ever this season. They love when they second on the match. Like, they just want to be away from home. They hate Old Trafford.
Yeah, it's a very strange thing. Yeah, I don't know. So I'd like us to line up in a very similar way that we've done against Liverpool in the last. I don't know. We're playing football like every day. So yesterday we could have played Liverpool yesterday. I don't know. I want to see Cavani start. I'm a bit apprehensive of Martial at the moment. I want to see Rashford out wide. I'd love to see Mason Greenwood, but we don't know, so we might have Rashford out wide or Pogba out wide, which I don't want. Obviously Bruno's going to play. I want Pogba central. I want Luke Shaw in the team. He's done really well of late. Maguire's done really well. I don't think we'll see Bailly start. I think he's struggling with fitness, as Eric Bailly does. So I think Lindelof will start. I just want United to carry on playing the way that they have. Ollie was very, I want to say, negative when we played Arsenal the last time. That was the weekend after United beat Leipzig 5-0 and United were going to win the Champions League. And then he changed the formation to put Pogba on the left. It was very strange, and then you go and lose to Arsenal at Old Trafford. It's unacceptable. So I feel like United just need to carry on playing the way they are playing. I feel like the team belief is good for them. They just need to go out now and execute. And that's all I want to see. I don't think Donny van de Beek will start again. His starts are few and far between, but he'll get there. But yeah, that's look. It's Arsenal. We could go and lose this game very easily, but we could also win. It comes down to how that defensive centre back pairing and the midfielders in front of them sort the game out in the first 10 minutes. For me.
Okay. That's cool. I'm not gonna do predictions because I think I know probably United win, Arsenal win, and Dean's probably gonna go down the middle. But Dean,
I'll take a 1-1 happily.
A 1-1.
Take it.
You'll take a 1-1. I want to win, but I'll probably take a score draw. Actually, no, I want a clean sheet. It has to be a boring game. No. No one's gonna score. Dean, you can give us a prediction on the game, but also just want to get your thoughts on Tottenham playing Liverpool. How are you feeling? You're playing the defending champions at a very interesting time. So,
yeah, look, okay, from an Arsenal United perspective, 0-0, purely because I don't want anyone to get points from a fantasy perspective either, and I don't think anyone's got Arsenal United defenders. So I prefer that. But yeah, listen, from a Spurs Liverpool perspective, I think it's a very interesting game. You know, I've got a lot of guys messaging me, even DSTV's mocking you. The ads are even saying previous title contenders, now 5th and 6th, are playing each other. So, if DSTV is even getting in on the banter, then it's bad. But I think, honestly, it's probably from a Spurs perspective, it's probably the best time to be playing Liverpool, purely because of the run that they're in. I am, though, wary of if Spurs do what Mourinho is known for and sit back, that attacking three will start to get confidence. We saw it against the game at United. Salah it's not like the guy's forgotten how to score. He can still definitely play. So Spurs need to go out and they need to attack. And that's the only way Spurs are going to win that game. I think if Spurs get a result, which we better get a result, automatically it becomes we are now part of that top three, and we'll be fourth, but we're then definitely part of the conversation, and you can't discount Spurs anymore. Having said that, though, same goes for Liverpool. So they're gonna know the same thing, and they're gonna be wanting to do the same sort of run that we want. So I think it's going to be a very interesting game. I think both sides are kind of in this swing. If Spurs go ahead and win, it'll propel us. If Liverpool go ahead and win, people say, okay, they've turned the corner. It's been terrible, but well done. You've turned it around and it's coming back. So I think it will be interesting. That loss against Burnley obviously would have hurt. And again, we came so close in December to beating them. It was literally the last minute of the game, and it was away at Anfield. So from a Spurs perspective, we have to take confidence from that. We're playing at home. The guys are in form. Ndombele is literally, he's playing football for fun. I mean, those goals he scored against Wycombe Wanderers, it's unreal. So the guy can definitely, he needs to be playing up there. He's going to pull the strings, and hopefully he just dominates Thiago, because I think that's where the game's going to be won or lost again in the midfield. If we can shut that down, the front three have nowhere to go. Their defense is going to be wide open, and Kane and Salah is going to run rampant. So it is going to be interesting. But yeah, we'll wait and see. I'm definitely nervous because, like I said, this will probably determine the title race or our Spurs title challenge. But yeah, from an FPL perspective, it's going to be interesting as well. We're going to see who's going to pull strings from this.
Yes. Speaking about FPL, we're going to move on to that section of the show. So let's just get to stay around, and we'll be back in about 20 seconds, and then we'll discuss that. Okay, welcome back to the FPL show. Just a quick reminder, you can follow us on all these various platforms, One World Sports Radio platforms. The most important one is the YouTube there. Please do subscribe. FPL Game Week 21, we're in the middle of Game Week 20, but we look forward to the weekend's fixtures. The big issue, I think, for FPL managers right now is finding that right midfield combination to get you going through, especially with the injuries that are happening around. Kevin De Bruyne is out, and obviously from a forward perspective, Jamie Vardy's out. So that poses a problem for people. Myself, I had both De Bruyne and Vardy. It was just ridiculous. And then obviously Mo Salah's scoring form in the Premier League hasn't been up to scratch. Bruno Fernandes hasn't been scoring a lot of goals. So the question is, what does one do? I'll tell you what I did. I kept on the check, which is great because the check is just seemingly scoring. And I made a couple of adjustments. I think I brought Bruno in because I kind of felt that he'll still get me numbers. I kept Mo Salah. I don't know if it's time to sell Mo Salah. Maybe you guys can tell me. But I'm just trying to figure out. Oh, and then I brought a City player in, and I think that's where the intriguing part of it is. You just kind of figure out which City player is the one who's going to get a lot of game time in this period. I went Phil Foden. I think guys went Ilkay Gundogan because he's looking very good. But I feel as though it might be just a spring fling. But we'll chat about that. So, gents, have you been affected by these injuries or this drop in form or anything else, team?
Yeah, so I mean, I think probably about 4 million FPL managers were affected by De Bruyne getting injured. And, last show, I was very loud and boisterous about my new 3-5-2 formation. And, it's going to be great. And, get rid of those strikers. Now De Bruyne is gone. And you said exactly what you said. You're sitting with that conundrum of who to bring in. So I've also left Souček in. So the only worry is I only had Stones from a City perspective for their win against West Brom. But as I said on the last show, Gundogan is definitely the guy that I would probably bring in from a City perspective. He's playing the most. Guy's playing the best football in the Premier League he's probably played ever. And he's definitely scoring the goals. So I think he's the direct replacement. What I did actually was replace De Bruyne with Maddison. So I think Maddison's he's the one that's going to start. He's already done it in the previous 3 or 4 matches, but I think he can really push on from here. And even though Vardy's not there, he does still have guys like Barnes and things like that running around him. So looking at assists, he's on those free kicks, he's on corners. So from that perspective, he's looking good. But I will look to get Gundogan coming in. The only issue is I've now got a great midfield 5, and you've got about £7 million in the bank to spend because you got rid of De Bruyne. So who do you bring? So I'm probably going to go back to getting another striker and bringing Antonio in or something like that. So
I went that route. So my question was, I think it was either I picked Harvey Barnes. In one of the iterations, I was considering either Harvey Barnes or Maddison. I went with Harvey Barnes. But then because I had so much money left, I could bring in a striker. So my issue, and I spoke with everyone last week about Antonio. So I brought in Mikel Antonio. The problem was I had 3 West Ham players all in the line: Kufal, Antonio, and Souček. So I had to be a little bit creative with my formations just to make sure that I minimize the risk of or in case David Moyes becomes David Moyes again. So AB, what would you consider this week? Did you have any issues like the rest of us? Even though
no, I'm second now. Dino's overtaken me. I'm not angry about it. So I'm just disappointed in Pep. So I had full Foden, and I was tossing between Foden and Gundogan. But again, I think Foden, for some reason, is subject to Pep rotation. So I've literally just transferred Foden out now for Gundogan. But if you are looking, and I'm all about these budget guys, if you are looking for a budget midfielder who plays a lot, will probably, hopefully not get points this week, but in future, is Emil Smith-Rowe. Kid is 4.5 mil. He's playing well. He's a great player. Hopefully he'll come to United one day because he wants to win.
Why must you be like this?
Yeah, so,
why not Bukayo Saka? Speaking about Arsenal players, right? Arsenal's on the spread.
United will take both. It's fine.
I'm talking about the FPL team, dude. FPL.
Yeah.
Bukayo Saka is 5.1. Surely not him.
No, he is. Smith-Rowe is cheaper, though. That's the only.
Oh, yeah. So the other question I want to know is it time to consider an Arsenal attacking player? I know Aubameyang's not available, but from a striking perspective, Lacazette, he's been on form scoring. There's some points because I kind of feel there are some points being left on the table from an FPL perspective because people aren't looking at Arsenal. Is it time? I know you don't have Arsenal players, Dean, but think about other people's children.
I definitely think it probably could be time. And I think Lacazette is probably the one guy that I would probably, if I was not such a loyal fan to Spurs, I'd probably be looking to bring Laka in. And, you can always leave it up to Arsenal fans to come up with the most cringe-worthy sequence. Because I saw somewhere on Twitter it was Zaka, Laka, Saka, or whatever it was, combination.
Ooh, Shaka, Laka, Saka.
Yeah, it's literally terrible blood, So from an attacking perspective, I'd probably be looking to get him in. As you mentioned, Aubameyang's looking a bit, well, no one actually knows what's actually going on, so it's a bit worrying there. But yeah, I will never bring in an Arsenal player, so I can't even say what the prices are of guys, but you can look at Saka or Emil Smith-Rowe from a cheap perspective, but now that everyone's got funds to spare, if you're looking for that differential, probably go out and splash the cash on someone a little bit more premium.
Yes, I kind of felt that way with Souček because I had a lot of money and I was like, "Ooh, should I kick him out for like a match?" Yeah. AB, DCL, you've been a big DCL fan. He's back from injury. He scored in the FA Cup. Is it time to bring him back in? Also, with that question, when are we selling Patrick Bamford? I want to know. I don't know what I have to do with
this. Guys, okay, so I've got Bamford. Obviously, I sold DCL back in the day, but I honestly don't know what to do with Bamford. He's killing me. He's literally just
59 minutes. 59 minutes yesterday. Can't even get 2 points.
So Marcelo killing everyone's fantasy.
Yeah.
So look, I think if you're considering DCL, just wait a moment. Just wait until after they've played Leicester, see how it goes, because then they've got Newcastle. And we all know Newcastle are just, Steve Bruce doesn't know what he's doing. It's shitty. And then they've got Leeds again. So there's going to be goals galore in that game. But then they come to United, then they go to Fulham, then they go to Liverpool. It's a stuff up. So I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I don't know what to do with these strikers. This is the worst. Literally, this is the worst season for having a striker. You don't know who to pick. Obviously, you've got Kane because he's Harry Kane. But then who are your other two? It's a nightmare. I've got Bamford and Wilson from Newcastle. So it just goes to show I'm stretching here. I'm not 100% happy with these striking options. And if you look at the guys who are top of the table, the City, the United, the Leicester, all three of them don't have a fit striker, who's scoring goals. Okay, so Jamie Vardy is obviously scoring great goals, but he's not fit now. Liverpool don't have a striker. United don't have a striker. It's weird. It's a horrible place to be.
Everything's in the midfield, and so that's where the issue comes in. My other concern, and the thing I was trying to figure out is Rashford worth it as a differential, or should I go for Paul Pogba from a Manchester United perspective?
I would personally go with Paul Pogba. I think he'll accumulate a bit more bonus points than Rashford. Although, that being said, Rashford does love a big game. And with Arsenal, this coming week, Rashford loves them. We all know he scored his double there when he was 12? I don't know. He was so young. It was embarrassing. Arsenal, absolutely embarrassing. But yeah, Rashford does love a big game. He loves playing Liverpool. But yeah, so it's a toss-up because Paul Pogba's been in sublime form, but when he goes out wide, it's almost as if he doesn't look like he's affecting the game as much. He's round peg and square holes, and he's always on the run, so he's a little bit more tired. Yeah, I'd pick Pogba if Ollie's going to play Pogba in centre. Also because he's cheaper, so he's probably going to give you more value than Rashford, who may or may not be assisting the assists sometimes.
Okay. So is it time, Dean, to consider a 4-5-1 instead of a 3-5-2?
Yeah.
I definitely think it is. And that's the thing now. Everyone's got spare cash. So, it's a little bit different from the beginning of the season where we didn't see clean sheets coming around and things like that. Mm-hmm. So the one thing that I do think now is you've got the money and there's definitely ample reason to go out and get those premium defenders like Cancelo. You can't, you have to get Cancelo if you've got some spare cash, go and get the guy. He's playing, he's getting up front, and he's going to carry on doing it. So you're looking at those guys, and even someone, I saw after last night's game, Cresswell has overtaken, I think it was Robertson, as the highest scoring FPL defender. So looking at stuff like that, you can definitely look at bolstering your defense now with a little bit more options, and guys that are going to keep clean sheets. And you're looking at City, probably looking at some United guys. I'd still be a bit hesitant about getting Luke Shaw in. Just something about it doesn't feel quite right to click transfer Luke Shaw confirm. But yeah, I think
Aaron Wan-Bissaka. It's just like you're like, but what am I getting?
Yeah, it does feel weird, and I think as with the times, you have to just embrace how bad or how weird it might feel. And yeah, even from a Spurs perspective, if you're looking at some of their defenders, someone like Aurier is playing out of his boots as well. So the run of games aren't that bad that we've got coming up. So he's even an option. So 4-5-1 is probably the better option to go with now. And then as soon as De Bruyne comes back, I'd probably switch it up and then try and play it back, come back. But that's only in 6 weeks' time. So don't worry about it. By then, we'll probably have a fifth wave of the pandemic and the world will be a different place. So don't worry about that then.
Okay. Because obviously I had to use my wild card because of those two injuries. Damn it. But yeah. So how do you captain now with this dearth of talent? So next week, on the weekend, you've got Everton, Newcastle, Palace, Wolves, City, Sheffield, West Brom, Fulham, Arsenal, Manchester United, Southampton, Aston Villa, Chelsea, Burnley, Leicester, Leeds, West Ham, Liverpool, which is a tasty top of the table clash, and Brighton, Spurs. Do you just go Harry Kane or Son and just leave it at that and just close up shop? Or is there anything else that you can find?
Triple captain Edison. There you go, 18 points done.
I don't think you can look past the City guy playing Sheffield. Especially what they did against West Brom, you can't look past them. So someone like Cancelo also probably, you're looking at something about it just always feels weird about captaining into defender because it takes a split second of them not concentrating, stupid goal, whatever, and boom, you go from, like AB says, 15, 12 plus points to 4.
I'll say that to the John Stones captains in that double game week because that was fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, those guys are the bravest ones out there. So I'll take my hat off to the guys that captain them. But yeah, I think for the sake option, probably Kane captain, I reckon. Brighton.
So obviously there'll be guys who are alternative trying to claw back points, and they probably will have a Sterling inside there. Do you consider a Sterling as a as a captaincy option, especially after the West Brom game?
I think if guys went from De Bruyne to Sterling, that's obviously your choice. If you've made that transfer, if you've had Sterling in your team, you'll probably go that way. If you're looking at some other differentials, though, you kind of have to look at. I'd be very interested to see what Tuchel does at Chelsea tonight. And because we all was talking about that little bump, in form that they're going to get, they're playing Burnley. So, maybe Timo, maybe Havertz, one of those guys, it might be worth a shot seeing if one of them can do something.
So whoever starts tonight against Wolves, kind of extrapolate that and say maybe. So if it's Tammy Abraham, put in that 7 that Tammy Abraham inside there.
Like ride the good times, ride the good times, ride the bubble, and see what happens. That's the way. If you're not at the top of your log or you're trying to gain some points, you have to look at these quick little ways you can gain quick traction. So that might be one of them.
Mm-hmm. AB, are you having a captaincy headache like the rest of us?
It has to be between someone from City, be it Gundogan, be it your Cancelos or your Edisons, guys who's going to start, versus the Harry Kane or Son issue. It's weird. I want to see how Son and Kane play against Liverpool, and I know it's tough to compare, but if they win against Liverpool, they are going to run riot at Brighton. Mm-hmm. If they draw, it might be a bit more edgy because they don't want to draw back-to-back games. So these tonight's and tomorrow's fixtures are really critical for both games because, you always feel awkward captaining a defender or a keeper, and I don't want to do that because Sheffield may go and score 3 goals, and then oh my word.
Watch Brewster come on, score a hat-trick.
Well, I think from my perspective, I think since Everton's playing Newcastle, I think if DCL plays a full 90, I'd consider captaining him. I don't think he's in my team. I might have to panel beat it to get him in, but I think DCL could be an option if you want to bring him in as a differential. Guys, I think let's end it there. Thank you very much for joining, and thank you very much to the viewers and the listeners on the podcast for following us. Remember, just these different platforms, please engage with us on there, and also our Twitter handles are there at the bottom. All I can say is enjoy the football. There's a lot of football. It's coming thick and fast. Enjoy it. Have a great time. These 10 p.m. kickoffs are kicking me, but it's still good enough to watch. So thanks Dean, thanks AB, and to everyone else who's watching, thank you very much, and Lesale.